All right, thank you so much everyone for coming. My name is Jennifer Zhao. I am the Executive Director of the International Center of the Capital Region. It's my honor to be here today. I just want to give a warm thank you to the Hudson Valley Community College for hosting us, our new home. We're very excited about this partnership. The first order of business is we'd like to introduce Rafi. He is a celebrated singer in the Capital Region. He sings in 9 different languages, and he is going to start us off with a song.
You can stand if you want to. Is this the microphone? This one?
Yes.
We don't need microphone anyway, right? All right. While the storm clouds gather far across the sea, let us swear allegiance to a land that's free. Let us all be grateful for a land so fair as we raise our voices in a solemn prayer. God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with the light from above. From the mountains to the prairies, to the oceans white with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet home. God bless America, my home, sweet home.
Thank you so much, Rafi. That was beautiful. I'd like to invite Dr. Deitchmann up. Jay is the coordinator for global initiatives at HVCC.
Thank you. Thank you, Jennifer. And Rafi, thank you for that wonderful rendition. That was lovely. It reminds me that I have no singing ability, and now I'm rather upset. But thank you. So I have first of all, let me be the first person from the college to welcome you all to the campus. If it's your first time here, welcome. If it's not, then welcome back. I have the privilege of introducing some folks as we start the event today. First of all, I'd like to introduce Florencia Felder, the Capital Region Director for U.S. Senator Kirsten Gillibrand. So welcome. Jake Ashby, New York State Assemblyman and proud Hudson Valley Community College alum in the back. Okay. We have a number of Rensselaer County legislators in the crowd, so thank you all for taking the time to be here today. And lastly, I have the honor of introducing our president, Dr. Roger Ramsammy. But let me just take a moment and give some context. So it was July 2nd, 2018. I came into work. I had been out the day before. Excuse me. And I checked my voicemail, pretty standard. And there was a message from Suzanne Kalkbrenner, the president's executive assistant. And the message said, "Hi, Jay, it's Suzanne. Dr. Ramsammy would like to meet with you as soon as possible to discuss international affairs." Well, I was blown away, stunned. I was just really struck. Why? Well, it wasn't specifically because I had a message that the president wanted to speak about international affairs, right? It was because the message was left the day before when it was his first day on campus. So his very first day on campus on his to-do list was to find out about international affairs. So if I was a narcissist, I would think, well, he had the first thing on his list was to make sure he spoke to me. And I guess I probably lingered on that for about 10 seconds, and then I came back to reality and realized that it wasn't me he wanted to speak to specifically. It wasn't because it was me. It was because of clearly a passion for internationalization and globalization. So that it was because of that his very first day on campus, when he had a few other things to think about, he made sure that was on the list, and I was blown away. And that's when I knew that internationalization and globalization were important to our president. So with that, I'd like to introduce our college president, Dr. Roger Ramsammy.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, my friend. And good morning and welcome to Hudson Valley Community College, the #1 community college in the capital region. And you could understand why we put unity in the community, because we serve you all in our communities. We are indeed a college that is for our community, and we do everything possible. Now, when you heard Jay, thank you so much, Dr. Deitchmann, for your telling me about that story. I didn't even realize I did that. Goes to show how how much things now I'm wondering that I have done that I don't remember. But so that you understand the context of what he just said, you must know that when I first came here, I was actually working in the background that was in July of 2018. I was actually working in the background from November of 2017, studying all of the data from the college. And so that you understand, at the time, and as of even up until yesterday, it has shown that colleges across the nation are experiencing a massive decline in the student population. And community colleges mainly are the ones who are seeing that big decline. In fact, this college itself has seen almost 50% loss in its students, almost, from since 2010 to today. Now, of course, that is even bigger numbers when you get to the other colleges. 50% loss in where we were still leaves us as the second largest college in the capital region. So even then, we're still one of those competitive colleges. But when you look at the data and you saw that under 18 is also decreasing in its population within the capital region, when you look at data that shows that the over 35 was increasing only by 0.01%, that also says something to you. When you single it out by county and you saw that Saratoga is the only county that had any type of improvements in terms of an increase, yet still not at the 18 age and under. When you look at the data that shows that 16 and under is also at a standstill, which is kind of getting a little bit scary in terms of what would happen, you begin to think, well, if our population is decreasing, business and industry in themselves are stalled, you see? And they would love to grow, and they would need the skilled workers in here. And that's where the mindset goes. How do we make sure that our students who are coming out get to go into the industries and keep those businesses growing? And that's where the mindset comes from. And if we don't have an introduction of more people into this community, if we don't do things to attract folks to this region, then we're not doing our community service. It's our job to make sure that we serve the community. And serving the community refers to parents, students, business and industry, and our government. I must say to you today, I am pleased that we have in front of us today, you heard that Senator Gillibrand's office is represented here today. We have Assemblyman Jake, Ashby, who is with us, who is a formidable, when it comes to working on these tasks to make sure that these dreams come true, in terms of us being competitive in this world, Assemblyman Jake Ashby, who's standing in the back, is one of those individuals who work diligently to make that happen. Our Rensselaer County Legislator, Tom Grant, is right here. And sitting next to him is Bob Loveridge, right there. Dan Casale is right next to him. These are members. Their mindset is to grow the county, make sure that the county continue to strive and become better. And they depend and work closely with the college to make sure that this college do what it can for our college students to get them into the competitive role. Now, you may be asking, well, what does that have to do with ICCR, right? I know my director is sitting there thinking, well, from the first day that I had the conversation about ICCR having, its data revised, looking at their previous location, I knew then that there was an opportunity for the college to become part of something even bigger. And that's part of the reason why we engaged, and Dr. Deitchmann was the man who spearheaded the movement to make sure that this happens for us. Because it was important for us to see that you have a home and place yourself in an environment that is very supportive of what you're doing. But in collaboration between what you do and what we do, we expect you to blossom and make our goals even more manageable. I want to say that our mayor was also going to be here, Mayor Madden, but Mayor Madden is ill, and so he couldn't be with us, but this is also very important for him. Hudson Valley is located in Troy, and this means a lot to him, what we do here. So let me talk just quickly a little bit about some of the things that I foresee. For ICCR, they have had their hands in very large delegations that have visited here in the past. Well, see how we interlock. Hudson Valley, just last week, signed an agreement with the Costa Rican government, Ministry of Education, live and online signing, to serve the public high schools in that country. That was one of our first major steps. We have been implanted in the islands of Trinidad and Barbados. We have sites inside of Ghana. We have sites in the Philippines. And we are working with companies that are also abroad. Recently, we met with Welcon, which is the largest offshore wind producers in Denmark. We met with Marman, who is one of the largest builders of offshore wind from Quebec. And we're working with Offset, the largest in the world, that's in Denmark. These are the folks who are coming to us because they're going to be implanted right here on the ports of Albany. They're going to be part of this whole new venture of offshore wind. So the international arena is already coming here, and we are already working with them. And in collaboration with what you do, how much more can this college become part of that one beautiful global picture, which I believe this world as we know it is no longer just Rensselaer County. It's not just the capital region. It's not just the state, and it's not just the United States. We are indeed reaching and working with countries. We are a global community college. We're working in a global atmosphere. And let me tell you, our classes that we are conducting, we have students who sign up for classes from other countries online and work with our faculty in their regular classes. We already had a global classroom that ran live last year from students from how many different countries? 22, Dr. 22 different countries signed on to our summer classes last year, live here at this college. So when I think of ICCR, I think of an entity, a group who's going to come with us, going to love what we do, and we're looking forward to so much of what you do. And we're hoping that this collaboration that's between both of us will continue to grow. I know that our legislators, and Tom Grant, Jake, and others, are excited about this whole unity between us. And I'm looking forward with some of our things that we're doing. Last week we started with our week before I think we started with our veterans program. We opened a veterans center on campus. Well, that is to welcome veterans who are coming back from all over the world. We have what you call a faith-based leadership organization on the campus that had 185 churches involved. That is continuing to grow, but that also has members from all over the world. We had our refugee leadership on the campus here, in which we met with over 140 different leaders on campus and online because of COVID. And that leadership group is also blossoming. We have refugees coming in, lots of refugees. We would love to be a campus that is welcoming to all. And we would like to make sure that we are in a place that we provide the services that welcome others from other countries. So, how can we help? The question would be, what can we do to make sure that you're successful? And how can we collaborate on all that you do? Looking forward to it. I thank you so very much for the opportunity, and I welcome you back onto the stage. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. Your words are heartwarming to us as we are new to the campus, and we are certainly excited about the partnership and deeply appreciate everyone who have made this event possible, including Jay, the folks at the communication department, the graphics department. This would not be possible without the support that we're already getting. And I can imagine that we can just have that relationship blossom, as you said, and work together even more and paint that beautiful picture of the global citizenship, both within our capital region, also internationally. So next, I'd like to introduce Mr. Mike O'Brien. He's the president of the board of ICCR. He will give some brief remarks.
Thank you, Jennifer. For over 6 decades, the International Center of the Capital Region has welcomed visitors from around the world to the United States to learn about our institutions, our practices, and our culture, as well as to share with us their cultures and ideas. In COVID times, there were no more global visitors journeying to us. Funding became tighter and we could not afford any full-time staff. Fortunately, a former director, Ryan Mall, helped us part-time to keep the center viable. The ICCR pursued discussions with Hudson Valley Community College to partner as the regional organization for hosting international visitors through GlobalTies and the IVLP programs out of Washington, D.C. Jay Deitchmann has been our principal contact at Hudson Valley Community College, but it is very clear that without the strong support of President Dr. Roger Ramsammy and his team, the partnership between Hudson Valley Community College and the International Center of the Capital Region would not have happened. In early June 2021, the ICCR hired our director, Jennifer Zhao, whose communication skills and directing skills have better connected the center to membership and sponsors. Additionally, Jennifer has been directing our programming by setting up virtual programming with international visitors. We will be reestablishing in-person visits as soon as we are allowed to do so. Many thanks to our ICCR board members for their work during these difficult times. Fred Ehrlich is our board vice president. Bob Tangor is our board treasurer. Gary McCann is our board secretary. Lily Mia, she was working on the front desk as you came in. Jeff Sarin, Mike Yevely, Fred Ricard, and Cameron Robinson. I would also like to acknowledge that we have student intern, Sarah Bracken. The next part of our program is going to be a video by Miss Ann Grimes. Ann Grimes has been a U.S. Foreign Service officer for 28 years and is a career member of the Senior Foreign Service. Her previous postings have included Madagascar, Indonesia, Washington, D.C., India, and China. She speaks French, Indonesian, and Mandarin. She joined the Office of International Visitors as an office director, that's one of our feeder programs, at the U.S. State Department since September 2018. The IVLP program is the U.S. Department of State's professional exchange program. Through short-term visits to the United States, current and emerging foreign leaders in a variety of fields experience this country firsthand and cultivate lasting relationships with their American counterparts. Professional meetings reflect the participants' professional interest and support the foreign policy goals of the United States. So there will now be a video presentation by IVLP.
Hello, my name is Ann Grimes, and I'm the Director of the Office of International Visitors in the Bureau of Educational and Cultural Affairs at the U.S. Department of State in Washington, D.C. I am so very sorry not to be able to attend this celebration with you today in person. However, I'm thrilled that you're able to hold this reopening event, and I extend my appreciation to the Hudson Valley Community College for their support. Thank you to Jennifer Zhao and her team for inviting me to send this greeting. We are grateful to be able to count the International Center of the Capital Region among our valued partners for the U.S. Department of State's International Visitor Leadership Program, or IVLP. The International Center of the Capital Region, or ICCR, is one of 84 organizations throughout the country who host IVLP participants and plan their key professional meetings. You help us deliver many important topics to exchange participants in support of U.S. foreign policy priorities, including transparency in government, countering misinformation, journalism, and empowering girls in STEAM education. IVLP exchange participants not only gain professional contacts and knowledge when traveling to your city, but just as important, they participate in cultural and social experiences that provide exposure to American values. I know that many of you have taken part in these professional meetings and social activities or shared a bit of yourself, whether that was through taking participants on a boat ride on Lake George or hosting international visitors in your homes to share a meal. These may seem like small acts at the time, but it is by welcoming exchange participants into your lives that you contribute to long-lasting, positive impressions of the United States and the American people. While we've been implementing exchanges over virtual platforms for the last year and a half, we have seen that the essence of the IVLP is still delivered best through intimate interactions with Americans across the country. Whether you are Zooming from your living room or meeting for a virtual coffee chat, these social get-togethers provide the basis for international relationships to develop. While we've made great strides in delivering a rewarding IVLP experience virtually, I know that all of us look forward to the day, hopefully soon, when we can safely welcome in-person IVLP groups back into our communities. As you share ideas, challenges, and successes with people from other countries, you are creating relationships to build upon and determine solutions to global issues that impact us all. Isn't it great to be part of the solution? These people-to-people connections are so very vital to creating a peaceful and prosperous world. We appreciate your willingness to engage in both IVLP virtual and in-person projects, and we look forward to many more years of working together. On behalf of the Office of International Visitors, thank you, ICCR, and your entire community. Please enjoy your grand reopening event.
Thank you, Anne, where you are now in Washington, D.C., for sending that video. Next, I would like to introduce Ms. Katherine Brown. She is the president and CEO of GlobalTies US. It is a nonprofit organization, which is an umbrella organization that oversees exchange programs for the nation. So, go ahead and play the video.
Hello, I am Katherine Brown, president and CEO of GlobalTies US. And I'm thrilled to be here with you today virtually for your annual meeting. At GlobalTies US, I have the honor and the privilege of supporting the country's largest citizen diplomacy network. ICCR has been a valued member of the GlobalTies network for decades, and together with more than 80 other community-based members, we make up the most established nationwide organization, ensuring that international exchanges help to advance critical U.S. foreign policy objectives. Our mission at GlobalTies US is to power individuals, communities, and nations to build trust and to advance peace and prosperity through international exchange. And we're proud that through the International Visitor Leadership Program and through other exchange programs, we've been enriching U.S. cities and communities like yours for more than 60 years. Citizen and subnational diplomacy, which is what ICCR, your community partners, and volunteers engage in every day, are foundational to building this trust. Our work in public diplomacy is to build relationships, partnerships, and to build trust between the world and the United States. An open and authentic dialogue and relationships built through citizen-to-citizen diplomacy is how we get there. American citizens have a unique and critical role to play in U.S. foreign policy. Citizen diplomacy is based on the premise that all of us, all of you, have the right and the responsibility to be part of foreign affairs. And that's why I'm so excited for ICCR's new partnership with Hudson Valley Community College. The programs at ICCR provide entry points for citizens to better understand our world and for the world to better understand us, and how we can impact the world, like participating in exchange programs as hosts and resources and other volunteers. Citizen diplomats help international visitors see and understand the United States' complexity and the strength and diversity of our cities, institutions, and civil society. In introducing exchange program participants to American activists, journalists, religious leaders, educators, and community leaders, citizen diplomats help to humanize and change Americans' view of foreign citizens and nations. I encourage all of you here to learn more about ICCR's programs and resources to find your own role in citizen diplomacy. And congratulations to ICCR on your grand reopening. And thank you to Hudson Valley Community College for your partnership. I'm excited to see your accomplishments in 2022 and beyond. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, Ms. Katherine Brown. Next, I would like to welcome, before I do that, I would like to recognize anyone in the IVLP program who have been a speaker or a host or volunteer. Could you please stand? I know we have some. Please stand. Let's give them a round of applause. Thank you so much for volunteering your time. As you heard from our wonderful speakers just now, your role is so important for us to understand the world and have them understand us. So please continue to do those things, and we'll have more opportunities, hopefully, to have in-person visits. And if you haven't been a speaker or a host before, I encourage you to find us, sign up, and find opportunities to do that. And if you speak to any of those speakers, they will let you know how rewarding those experiences are. Okay, so next I would like to welcome Mr. Tom Grant, the Rensselaer County Legislator, to give a few remarks along with his colleagues.
Hi, on behalf of my colleagues with the Rensselaer County Legislature, Dan Casale is here with us today, is Bob Loveridge. Dan Casale is the chairman of the Legislative Education Committee. So Hudson Valley Community College comes under his jurisdiction. He's done a great deal of work on behalf of the college and this program. Dan, would you consider presenting a certificate, please? To Jennifer, Jay, and Michael?
I'd just like to know that thank you for everything for the center and stuff, and being also a alumni of Hudson Valley and chairman of education, and also being on the foundation board, which is a big tool for raising money for children to go and students to go and adults to go to Hudson Valley Community College, and we have a great president in Roger. Thank you, everybody.
And I forgot to mention Jake Ashby. He's done a tremendous job for us at the state level, as Roger has indicated before. Please give him a round of applause as well.
On behalf of
Vincent will direct you.
over here, right? Move over. Come on, everybody get in the group picture here.
Come down a little bit and come to the front.
Come forward a little, please. Right left down. Get a more appropriate lens. All right. All right, great. Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. We're so honored. Next, I have the honor to introduce to you Ms. Aneesa Waheed. She is the chef and owner of Tara Kitchen. If you have been to any of her 4 restaurants here in the Capital Region, consider yourself lucky because it's one of the best experiences, not just food, but overall experiences that you can have. So if you haven't been there, I highly recommend it. Ms. Aneesa is an immigrant herself. She moved to the Capital Region from India as a teenager, and since then she has became an entrepreneur, businesswoman, and a real champion for women in business and minorities in business. So I'd like to welcome Ms. Aneesa to give us our keynote address.
Wow. Good morning. Thank you so much for having me here today. Jen had called and asked me to talk about my experience of coming to America and, building a business here. And during that conversation, I had somehow forgotten this, but I remembered that I had hosted a group of IVLP. IVLP. I'm scared of acronyms, apparently. Aren't we all, though? So I had hosted a group of women from Uganda a few years ago. I think it was in 2016, I believe. And someone from ICCR had reached out and had asked me to come and meet with this group of women who were coming to America to understand our life here. And it was sort of a interesting conversation and an interesting change of events because I myself saw me as someone who needed that experience. And so for me to be on the other side of explaining my American life and my American entrepreneurial life and how I had established myself was really, a sort of my life coming full circle. Because only in 1993, my family had moved from India to Schenectady, New York. And I was 16 at the time. And I was not interested in moving, especially leaving my friends and family and high school and all that jazz that goes with that. And, you know, I was picked up from this country and a city that only knew weather temperatures that were hot, hotter, hottest, to, you know, landing in Schenectady, New York, to cold, colder, coldest. And, you know, we ended up actually arriving on a day that has been recorded as having the biggest snowstorm in the capital region. This was February 5th, 1993. We were flying into JFK, but the plane got diverted and they landed in Newark. And, you know, the announcement kept going on in the plane about coming into Newark, and we're all looking at each other thinking, we just don't understand the dialect. I'm sure they're saying New York, right? So the whole time we're thinking we're going to New York, we land in Newark, New Jersey. And there was no one there to receive us because the party receiving us was in New York at JFK. So that's sort of how I came into America. And I didn't have a winter jacket because we were not really thinking we were going to a place that was cold, colder, coldest. And I didn't have boots. I was wearing a sari, and so were my siblings. And my parents were not with us on that particular on that initial trip. But you know what happened? Lufthansa was the airline that we took, and Lufthansa assigned us a sort of cultural ambassador, and this person stayed with us for the first 24 hours while they tried to track down my parents who were waiting for us at JFK, and you know, tried to get us coats and shoes because we was freezing even inside the airport. So it took about 24 hours to finally get everybody together, and then when we had to drive from Newark to Schenectady, that was a horror story for another day. But we finally made it here, and I was very angry. I was very upset. I was disheartened by everything I saw. It was cold. It was rainy. It was all white and nothing like Mumbai, which is where I had spent my entire life of 16 years. And if you know anything about India, if you've seen any pictures, heard any music, met any Indian people, you know that we are a people of lots of color, and we're people of a lot of animation, and you know, India is a vivid, visceral country. And I'm going back soon, and a friend of mine is coming with me who's here today, and I told him, I'm like, you know, you're either ready for it or you're not. There's no in between going to India. So it was sort of a shock. It was a shock to come and be here and not really have a support system and not understand what was happening. You know, my parents were here, but they were engaged in activities that in what they needed to be doing, which was try to put food on the table. And there were five of us who were sort of left to our own devices. And I started high school. And it was very, very difficult my junior year in high school to be at Schenectady High. Although I grew up speaking English, and I spoke it fairly well even back then, I was different. I looked different. I behaved differently. I had a different accent. It was hard for the children to understand why I dressed the way I did, or why the cafeteria food was shock and awe. I just didn't understand. It was, you know, I'd gone to the grocery store with my mom, and I didn't understand what asparagus was, or why anybody would want to eat it, or for that matter, broccoli, or, you know, I didn't understand the shapes and sizes of the vegetables, and everything was new and different. And, you know, being dropped into a new country, new culture at that age, as you can imagine, I I sort of have a different appreciation for it now as an adult, but back then it was very, very challenging. And had it not been for the kindness of people within the community, which were, it was definitely not my classmates, but it was the adults. The guidance counselors and the teachers and eventually the scoutmasters, the churches and the neighbors and the people that we started working for. If it wasn't for them, I'm not entirely sure how we would have survived those first few years. And, I came in at a time when it was time to decide what to do for school and college. And you don't do that back home. You don't get a choice of what you're going to choose as your major. You basically do a standardized test. These ladies are laughing because they know exactly what I'm talking about. You do a standardized nationwide test and you get your score, and then everyone looks at your scores and says, "You loser, you're either going into economics," you're clearly not qualified to be a doctor, because anything shy of 100%, you're a loser. I never even thought that I would ever have an option to decide what I was going to do when I was growing up. I was just waiting for my standardized test to come back and then someone to tell me where I could fill a spot within this pre-arranged programs that they have at universities. And so this was definitely, it was great. It was great that I was being asked by my guidance counselor, so where do you want to go to school? What do you want to study? And who do you want to be? And I'm being asked this as soon as I come into the country, and I was like, a movie star. Like, I don't know. I never even thought about this, but I'd always been artistically inclined, so I joined Sage JCA in Albany, and I started majoring in fine arts. And to my parents' credit, either they were too busy or didn't really understand what I was doing. They didn't realize I was in art school because they didn't say anything. They just sort of, let it go. They were like, okay, she's in school doing something. But after a year, I quickly realized that I wanted to be an artist, but I wasn't good at it. I had to face facts. So I started to try and change my career. I went into graphic design and, tried to learn, this is back, what is this? Late 90s, 94, 95, 96, trying to learn the Apple computer and all of those kind of things. And I was better at that, and I worked really hard, and a pure chance meeting at a Macintosh user group, someone offered me a job and invited me to go to New York City, and I honestly thought he was hitting on me. Maybe he was, but I took him up on the offer, and I went to New York City. This was junior year in college, and my professors and my dean, they were all sort of stunned by this move that I had made. But in the back of my mind, I was thinking, I need to figure out a way to provide for my family. We were new immigrants, we were struggling, my parents still had minimum wage jobs. Their careers back home did not translate to careers in America. Although my dad had a fairly successful career in advertising and he was a professor, he's highly educated, he became a bank teller making $4 an hour. So that weighed on me a lot, and as the I'm second in line of command at home with siblings. My older sister and I knew that we had to step it up. So when I got a job offer making way more money than anyone else was making in the family, I took it. And I'm glad I did, because I went to New York City and I finally found my people. Like, this is where I belonged. It definitely had everything that I was missing about India. It had it. at a dialed down volume, but it had it. So even if you think New York City is like India, it's not. India is still dialed up. So, but it was great. I was there. I had a job. I had a career. I was making money. I was back eating food that looked familiar. I could go to Jackson Heights. I could eat, gyros. I could eat falafel. I could eat kebabs. I could eat. There was just, I think, the diversity that I found in food and in culture and in people. It finally felt home to me, and I ended up spending a good 13 years in New York City working in printing and publishing, and I really excelled at it. I did it really well and grew, and I think maybe 7-8 years into it, I realized that although I enjoyed what I was doing, I did not see a future in this career path for myself. I was hitting a glass ceiling much, much, much faster than even other women were hitting it. And, I had been told multiple times when things like these were told to people without consequences, that I didn't have the right pedigree, I didn't have the right background, I didn't have the right color, I didn't have, I didn't know how to play well with the boys in the sandbox. These were, I wasn't married with kids, so why did I need a promotion? So I had pretty much heard it all, and I said to myself, and I'm not that old, so this is, in the 2000s, if you can imagine. These are the things that are being said. So I decided, I'm going to try and be my own boss and try and figure out a way to do this in a manner that I could control, in a manner that I had full control over my holiday schedule, control over the amount of money I made and the raise I got, and and the way I understood it, the only way to do that was to have your own business. So I said, okay, I'm going to go and create my own business. There was just a small problem. I didn't know how to do that. And even worse, I didn't have an idea. So I knew I wanted to do a business, but I didn't know what that was. And I aimlessly, was talking to people, reading books, watching the Food Network a lot. And my sister always said, she's like, just because you watch so much TV doesn't mean they're your friends. They don't interact back with you. You need to get off and go do something. So I just walking around the city, I happened to come across a street fair in the summer in New York. They close off a bunch of streets and avenues, and they allow people to put up a tent and sell a bunch of stuff to just people walking by. And I saw an opportunity there. Someone said, nobody here is selling any random tchotchkes from India. There was a lot of other stuff, but nothing really from India. So I bought a ticket to India. I went there. I bought a bunch of stuff, stuffed my suitcases with it, probably all illegal, but we won't talk about that. And I brought the stuff back with me. I got myself a street fair vendor permit. Made my parents very proud. My immigrant parents were very, very proud that I had a New York City. They were not. They thought I had really lost it this time. But I got this permit, and I started doing street fairs in New York City. And I had a 9-to-5 job. Still working in publishing. I was working at Latina Magazine back then, and I did my 10-hour shifts and went home, and I calculated what I was going to do for the weekend. I made arrangements. Craigslist was really big back then, so I posted on Craigslist to hire a man with a van to take me around the city. Let that sink in. But that's what happened. I ended up hiring a random guy off of Craigslist who came to my apartment, gave him my address. Literally, kill me now, please. But nothing happened. I'm here to talk about it. Not sure I'd allow my girls to do that though. So I put up an ad. I needed somebody to pick me up from my apartment and take me to the street fair with all my boxes and set up a tent, and that was the only way I knew how I could do it. So I met this random poet who came, picked me up at 5 and helped me set up in the city, and then he'd go off, write some poetry somewhere, and then come back and pick me up at 6, and I spent all day selling stuff on the streets, and it really took off. People started calling me, taking my number and calling me, hey, who knew that we need all this stuff? But people calling me for jewelry and scarves, and that little thing grew into trunk shows, and then I started doing indoor shows, and I started doing outdoor shows, and going to different colleges and universities and hospitals. I mean, if you gave me a 5x5 table, I sold something on it. That was sort of my entire life for a good 3-4 years. And during that time, a couple of my girlfriends and I decided to go to Morocco for vacation. It was Christmas holidays. We were all single, 30. And we knew we would go home and be nagged, why we didn't either bring boyfriends, or why we weren't married, or why we didn't have kids, or why I was selling it on streets in the city. So we said, you know what, let's not go home, let's go to Morocco. So we go to Morocco, and on a chance meeting, I happened to meet someone there who turned out to be my soulmate. He's here today. And also... That's Muntasim, and also a future full-time free employee. I saw him working and the way he moved in Morocco, and I knew it. I knew that I needed to bring this immigrant back. I tell all my single girlfriends, go out of the country. You not only find husbands, you find labor. And then you have kids, and guess what? More free labor. I wasn't looking for anyone. I wasn't thinking I'm going to get married on this trip, and I didn't get married on that trip, but we did get married within a couple of months. And after he moved to the U.S., I said to him, listen, New York City is the center of the universe, so I will not live anywhere else but the city. And he said, okay. So we got married, he immigrated, and then he was here for about a couple of months when I said, you know what, we have to move to Schenectady. Because we decided that we were going to open a shop. I was already doing the street fairs, and we decided that would be, we could make it a larger venture, and we decided to open a shop. And when we started looking for a brick and mortar space in the city, we quickly realized we couldn't afford anything. And it was, even back then, rents were $20,000, $30,000, and I would always say yearly, and they'd say no, monthly. And I was like, I don't know how many elephants I have to sell to, make that $20,000 rent, and I knew I couldn't. So my parents were still back home, and we were visiting, and we saw some empty spaces in downtown Schenectady, and when we inquired, the landlord said, $550, and I was like, what, by the hour? Like, I don't understand. And he's like, no, that's for the month. And I say, we'll take 3. So I promised Muntasim we were going to spend our lives in the thriving metropolis of New York City, but then I brought him here. And we've been here now since 2008. We opened the store. The store was doing well, but I also, a year into the store, I also was starting to understand that it didn't have the reach and potential to necessarily make me a billionaire. So I needed another plan, and just talking to some people who were coming into the store and talking about, my travels and where I'd been, and I'd met Muntasim in Morocco, who is not Moroccan. He happens to be from Pakistan. Probably an Indian and a Pakistani meeting would only happen in Morocco, actually. So we sort of had this, long history of being in different countries and stuff. And this woman was very, very interested in food and culture, and she asked me all these questions. She happens to be a teacher at Schenectady High School. And so we formed a connection, and she said, hey, can you cook Moroccan food, you know? And I said, yeah, I'd spent a lot of time there. I'd learned a lot about Morocco and Moroccan food, and their food is just phenomenal. And she said, well, can you cater an event? And I said, of course. And then I went home and I Googled, how do you cater an event? And I found out how to do it, got some recipes, and I catered this birthday party at her house, and it was a huge hit. After he and I had gotten married, we had spent a lot of time in Morocco, so I had, a lot of exposure to Moroccan food and culture and cuisine. I want something. No. So that chance encounter led to more events and more people asking me to cater, and I became a personal chef, and things started growing very rapidly from there because people were so interested in Moroccan food. Nobody had seen Moroccan food, had Moroccan food in this area. This is now 10, 12, 15 years ago, and this was new, this was unique, and people were really loving and embracing it. And someone suggested, why not try and sell this back at a farmer's market, and which made a lot of sense to me. I had already done street fairs in the city. I knew what that meant in terms of business. I knew, connecting with people, all of that stuff. So we started selling at a farmer's market, and did that for a few years, grew that into multiple farmers markets, and eventually with the support of some customers and a lot of support from our families and also the city of Schenectady, we were able to open our first location in downtown Schenectady in 2012. And it opened, and we were so ready to make that first $1 billion, but it did not happen. And we quickly realized that the transition from a farmer's market to a brick and mortar store is very different. It's, when people are going to a farmer's market, the mindset is different of what they're doing. And then having a storefront to run 30 days out of the month and all the expenses, all of that stuff is also, it's a whole new ball game. It's very different to keep a restaurant running all the time. In the early days, I used to say, it's like feeding a beast, and no matter what, the beast must be fed. It doesn't matter, you're up for it, doesn't matter if anybody's there, you just have to feed the beast. And that's what we did. For the first 5 years, we basically fed the beast, and it was a lot of work. It was grueling work, and it was also really not just challenging, but it was also very satisfactory because I was introducing people to something new and different. As I was doing it for myself, I was learning more about running a business. I was learning more about myself. I was learning more about the support I was getting from the community, which was incredible. And I don't think we could have done it anywhere else besides the capital region, to be honest. I was pregnant at the time. I was having babies. I was running a restaurant. My husband was enrolled at Hudson Valley back then, so he was in school all day because he sort of had this dream that he was going to be a car mechanic. Don't ask. I said, I wanted to be an art student in America, so you go be a car mechanic. So he was doing that, and it was just me and one other employee at the Schenectady restaurant the first few years, and Munsim would come home after class around 5 and then start working at the restaurant after 5. So it was definitely a tough time. So it was during this time when someone from ICCR had reached out and said, hey, can you talk to this group of women from Uganda, I think it was. And, I just sort of felt like, wow, how sort of life is coming full circle at that time. And it worked out for us. We, in 2017, opened our second location in Troy, in downtown Troy. We launched a line of cooking sauces, which sells in over 750 stores in the country. We opened a location in Guilderland, in Wildwood, New Jersey. We have one coming up very, very, very soon in the spring of 2022. Not quite ready to disclose the location yet, but that announcement will be coming soon. And we're also in the process of building a Moroccan spa in downtown Schenectady in a historical building. So, a lot has happened, a lot has changed. And when our President Ragaswamy was talking about the idea of global citizen and, not having boundaries, and I don't think it has become more apparent than now during COVID, and how we've been able to sort of embrace the idea of not having physical boundaries to allow people inside our homes, and via Zoom or calls, or allowing us to think. And I have been very, very fortunate to have been able to live in this country and experience our culture and gain from it and benefit from it. I'm not quite yet a billionaire, so please go out and support my restaurants. I will make some donations. But I am the American dream, and I wish that I could have seen this for myself when I was that 16-year-old who came kicking and screaming and who hated her parents for the first 10 years for doing this to her. But I wish that, I could have foreseen who we are as a community and what we are able to do as a country for our citizens, and to be able to share that globally. I think that now is probably the best time ever to do that. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much, Aneesa. Such a fascinating story. We're so proud of everything that you've accomplished, and we're so excited to see you and your business do even more in our area. So thank you. So this concludes the formal portion of our program. I'd like to remind you that there are silent auction items on the table outside. So feel free to take a look at those and bet on, not bet, but place your bid on those. We also have some round tables set up around the corner if you walk down this way. We have 3 different topics: community engagement, fund development, and visitor resources. This is an opportunity for you to give your feedback. So you've heard a lot from us and the many different speakers here. Now we want to hear from you in terms of what are your ideas? What do you want ICCR to do for you? And what do you want to contribute, whether your time or your resources or your talents, to our organization? We'd love to have you be more engaged. So we also have drinks along the side here, and the restrooms are on the right as well. So we'll dismiss you to the round tables, and then we will have hors d'oeuvres shortly as well. Thank you so much, everyone, for coming.